Good morning, everyone. This is Tom Wilder with the North Carolina Department of Labor, and I want to welcome everybody to the Powered Industrial Trucks webinar. So anyway, we have a large class today. It's good to have everybody here. Our webinar is scheduled for an hour and a half today, so you will receive 1.5 hours credit for the webinar today, regardless of how long we take. If we run a little bit short, you'll still get your 1.5 hours credit, which you can use for certifications such as MESH. Again, I'm Tom Wilder. I'll be your instructor today. For those of you who don't already know me, I have more than 6 years experience with the Department of Labor here in North Carolina. And prior to that, I worked 28 years in various safety training and quality management positions in the textile, machine assembly, and pharmaceutical industries. Most of those years were in the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, from which I am now retired. So a lot of times I give examples. A lot of times those examples come from my pharmaceutical experience. So at this point, like I said, a lot of you are already logged into the webinar. For those of you who are new to our webinars, look around your work area and try to limit any distractions. If you have an office door, you might want to close it, turn your phones off. If you're in a cubicle, you might want to use headphones and put up a do not disturb note. Today, our tool that we usually use is Webinato. You'll see our PowerPoint slides in the middle of the screen, and I'll advance those as we work through the class. At the bottom left corner, you'll see an emoji, and we will not be using the emoji because there are more people logged on than I can see at one time on the screen. So we're not using the emoji, but you will be using the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and a lot of you have been already saying good morning and using your chat so far since you've been logged in. You must attend 80% of the class today to receive credit, and I'll be looking at that after the class is over. I'll be looking at the login times and reviewing those to make sure that whether you deserve credit or not. We cannot give credit to anyone who's not registered and logged in, so if you have people sitting around you, only the registered person will get credit for the webinar. You will get a certificate, and you should get those electronically within 3 weeks. If you don't get those within 3 weeks, give our administrative person, Dee Bryant, a call, and her number is 919-807-2877. So it looks like we're all set. Those are all my little administrative duties that I have to do before every webinar. So everybody's ready to go for Powered Industrial Trucks today. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the class a question and ask you whether a 16-year-old can operate a forklift in an industrial setting. Can a 16-year-old operate a forklift in an industrial setting? Okay, a lot of you are right on top of it. You're saying no. So since a lot of you, or most of you, are safety professionals, and they shall not, and like Ray, I like your comment about should not. Now, 16-year-olds are not allowed to operate a forklift in an industrial setting. Now, the next question would be, is that in the Osha standard? Can you find that in 1910.178? Can you find that in Osha standard? Okay, a lot of quick no's. Okay, so it is not allowed. So what regulates that? Because this is a good question a safety professional would get. They say you can't operate this fork truck because you're 16 years old, and they say, okay, company policy, okay, that's a good reason, but it is the law. It is the law. Can anybody tell me what law that is? Okay, it is a labor law, Brenda, that's right. Okay, the name of the law is the Fair Labor Standards Act. The Fair Labor Standards Act. And that law determines a number of things that young workers cannot operate. A lot of equipment, certain heavy-duty balers, certain meat cutters, fork trucks, right, Barry? You're right on top of it. Um, there are a lot of things that young workers cannot do in the workplace in the United States. So that is in the Fair Labor Standards Act, the law, and that's also 29 CFR 570. So right now we're 29 CFR 1910, General Industry Standards. That would be 29 CFR 570. So that's why the companies have these requirements, because it is the law. Now, if you want to, this is up to you. You can scroll at the very top of your chat, and I've got links to a document about young workers operating forklifts. You'll see that Fair Labor Standards Act forklift PDF. You can click on that and you can save it if you'd like. So that's in our chat. Scroll to the beginning, click on the link, pull up the PDF document, and you can save it, print it, whatever you want to do. And below that is a sticker that some companies, well, actually it's a PDF document that you would make into a sticker, and they put that on equipment. No operators under 18. So again, a lot of the companies out there don't have workers below 18. If you do, you want to make sure that you don't let young people on those fork trucks. And there's that sticker. So that's a nice little icebreaker. I see that a lot of people were on top of this issue right away. Now, okay, Michael, you asked where, which one. What do you need to know, Michael? You said where, which one. I don't know how to answer where, which one. So, like I said, we're talking. Okay, sticker and document. Okay, Michael. Scroll to the top of your chat, and you'll see some hyperlinks that I put in there. One's a document talking about the forklift and the Fair Labor Standards Act, and the other link is for the forklift sticker. And then there's another one, use of dock locks, which I'll talk about later in the presentation. Okay, let me go ahead and continue, and this is what I like to do in my webinars. I like to go ahead and do an instant poll, and my question is, what is your experience level with this topic, powered industrial trucks? And let me go ahead and start this poll. What is your experience level with this topic? And as I would expect, I always get a mixed class. So I do have several beginners that are new to powered industrial trucks. Most of our people are intermediate, and I have several advanced all the way up to expert level on this topic in this webinar from the people that have responded. Now, several you haven't responded, and that's okay, but a good majority of you have. Okay, so that shows you where the students are as far as their knowledge, and that's going to also show you why that I'm getting very basic with some of the information, because we do have beginners. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this poll and close it and go to my other favorite question, which is professional safety experience. How many years of professional safety experience do you have? And this is going to show a lot of diversity as far as safety experience is regarded, as well as topic knowledge. So again, we have a lot of diversity there. We have 10 people that are new to the safety profession, 0 to 1 year. Right now I've got 12, 1 to 5, 6, 5 to 10, and 11 super veterans that have over 10 years experience. So this lets you know how our class breaks down as far as safety experience is concerned. So I'm going to stop that poll and close it, and we can go ahead and start with the PowerPoint slides. So again, we're talking about powered industrial trucks. Now, one thing I will note, you've got to maximize when maximize icon on your screen. You can hit that. It'll make the slides bigger, but it will cut your chat out. So if you want to chat, you need to minimize it. If you just want to look at slides, you want to maximize. It's a little box over there to the right that you can maximize your slides. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the minimum requirements, safe operation, training, evaluation, hazard ID, and abatement methods. And we'll be going right through the Osha standard. And I've got a little red dot there. On any particular slide, you'll see the standards number that refers to what the slide is talking about. So if you want to know where to look things up there in the upper right, they'll give you a clue. So we're going to talk about safety requirements, protection design, maintenance, and use. Fork trucks, tractors, lift trucks, hand trucks, and other specialized industrial trucks. And they can be powered by different means. And I know that all of you, well, hopefully most of you can read, most likely all of you. So I may not be reading every word of the slide. So I know you can read faster than I can even read it myself. So I'll be summarizing several of these slides. But powered industrial trucks, there are a number of different types, and we'll be talking about those a little bit in a few minutes. Now, it does not apply to compressed air or non-flammable compressed gas industrial trucks. Now, personally speaking, I've never seen a compressed air truck, but I have seen farm vehicles, and I have seen earth-moving vehicles. Those are out of scope for this standard. Now, can you take an earth-moving vehicle and add forks to it? Can you add forks to an earth-moving vehicle? What do you think? Yes, Joshua, you're exactly right. Tim, Christopher, Joyce, Michael. Yes, you can add forks, but if they're typically an agricultural vehicle, even though you can add forks, that doesn't mean that it's covered under this standard. And another good example are skid steers and compact track loaders. These are used mainly by small contractors and landscapers. Like I said, if it's designed as a fork truck, even though it's for construction, it is covered. So it depends. Joshua, I'd have to look at the particular piece of equipment you're talking about. But there are the outdoor units that would be covered. Okay. Now, when you look at our standard, you'll see that our standard refers to ANSI standard B56 1969. So when compliance goes out to do an inspection, that's the ANSI standard that they are referring to, directly referring to in the standard. And most of us know that there are ANSI standards newer than that, much newer than that. So you might want to become familiar with those ANSI standards. And they talk about things like operator restraint systems, those sorts of things. And I will tell you that the ANSI standards are typically not free, but in this case, they can be free for powered industrial trucks. So if you're interested in have free copies of the ANSI standards, and there are several B56 standards, you want to go to www.osha.gov itsdf.org. So I just put the link there. If you go to that link and you agree to the restrictions and use of those ANSI documents, you can get all those the current B56 standards free. A lot of safety professionals do it. I have done it. I've downloaded them and printed them out because there may be times where you need to refer to the ANSI standards, the newest one. But per the Osha standard, we're referring to B56.1 1969. Now, the second bullet on this slide says that the approved truck shall bear a label or identifying mark indicating approval by the testing laboratory. Where do you find the information for a truck? So if we're looking at a powered industrial truck right now, where am I going to find the information for that truck? There, you're right. It's on the plate. I think you have a typo there, but it's a plate, and you're right, data plate. So shall all powered industrial trucks have a data plate? Yes, absolutely. If something happens to that data plate, if it's messed up, obscured, the information rubs off, wears off, you need a current data plate on that truck. That data plate is critical to the operator. That data plate has load capacity, load center, a lot of good information on there that you need. And like Barry says, the manufacturer will get you a new one or get you one. Okay? So if you have equipment out there without data plates on it, that's a major issue. Okay, now let's say you want to modify your truck. Now this is a mock-up picture here. There's a weight on the back of that truck that's been added. It has, I believe, 500 pounds on it. Can you do that? Okay. Let's say you don't have the manufacturer's approval. The answer will be no. Some people will add additional counterweight onto that truck to try to increase the weight capacity of the truck, and that is absolutely not allowed. OSHA compliance officers, when they go out, they've actually seen this. Sometimes they'll make new counterweights out of metal, and they'll cut that metal, big thick pieces of metal, and they'll put it on the back of the truck, and they'll even paint it the same color as the truck. Well, that is not allowed. You do not make any modifications to that truck that has not been authorized by the manufacturer. And if you put certain attachments on it, they're going to actually have to issue you a new data plate. So anyway, you need, like the slide says, prior written approval from the manufacturer. So don't start fabricating a bunch of attachments and counterweights and those sorts of things for your truck without authorization. And in probably almost all cases, you're not going to get approval from the manufacturer because it's going to get outside the engineering design of that truck. Now, if you have front end attachments, again, you need to be checking with the manufacturer to make sure they're allowed, and because the companies that make these trucks know how that affects the capacity, operation, and all that sort of thing as far as the truck is concerned. Okay, your data plates. Here's a picture of a data plate, and like I said, it just means that the truck is listed for fire safety purposes, and all the critical information is again on that data plate. Now we know that we can buy trucks that are fueled. diesel, electric, gasoline, or LP gas. And that's where you're going to look at the tables in the OSHA standard and try to determine what the conditions are, the areas that these trucks are running in, and to try to determine which type you need to buy. I mean, if you had a forklift, and that forklift only operated in small rooms and small areas, what trucks would you not buy? Not buy. If you're running trucks in small areas, which ones would you not buy? Right, Ray, non-electric. Anything that's burning fuel, you're going to be creating carbon monoxide. So that would be a factor in your choice of equipment. And like I said, you can look at the table in the standard about uses in various locations. Okay. And you're not going to operate the trucks in atmospheres that already contain hazardous concentrations of gas, dust, or vapor. And trucks can be converted from gasoline to LP gas. The standard does state that as well. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time on this particular slide. Now, I got my red dot over here, and I'm circling the overhead guard. There is the overhead guard. Now, the slide says, and this is right out of the standard, the overhead guard is required unless operating conditions do not permit. Now, I don't like using this particular picture as the example where you'd be removing a guard, because the top of the mast and the top of the guard are about the same height. Now, let's imagine that overhead guard is a lot taller. Let's imagine it's a lot taller. Let's just imagine that guard is like that. Like I said, a lot taller than the mast. Like I said, it's not a very good drawing. But on this machine, that guard is way tall. Now, why would anybody ever, in that particular case, why would anybody ever want to remove that overhead guard? And there are companies that do this. Why would they want to remove that overhead guard? That's right, height issue, clearance. Okay. Now, that's exactly right. Those answers are exactly right. Now, Christopher's got what I'm looking for. Some trailers have low clearance. And I have seen that example years ago in the industry where they took the overhead guard off a truck so that they could get it inside of a truck. Now, per the design of modern forklifts, they may not be designed where that would be an issue, kind of like the picture here. But there are some out there. That have that issue. Now, let's say your company y'all remove the overhead guard. You just take it off of there. We're just taking this thing out. We're eliminating that whole thing, taking it out. Now, can that fork truck be used? I take the overhead guard off. Can it be used? Now, the standards allowing that guard to be removed. Okay, you're saying yes, that's correct. But, like Elton says, according to the standard, now, that fork truck with that guard off is going to be limited to low lifts only. That truck is not going to be able to do high lifts anymore. I mean, it literally could. I mean, I could take this fork truck and go into high racks, but that's introducing a hazard for the operator. So if you have a truck like that and you keep that guard off all the time, every operator would have to know that that truck is only used for low lifts only. You can't do any high lift operations with that truck. I mean, you'll be able to do some low lifts, but not high lifts. Because if you're bringing that load up high, you're introducing a hazard for the operator. So that one's, again, restricted to low lifts only. And if the OSHA compliance officer comes in and you have an inspection, they're going to ask questions of many different employees. And they're going to say, is this fork truck ever used for high lifts operation? They say, yeah, we use it all over the place. Well, that would be an issue. That would lead to a citation because you would be putting your operators at risk. So rule number one, typically I would say don't remove the overhead guards. But if you do, that fork truck's going to be very limited in what you can safely do with it. Okay? So I wanted to really explain that slide, and hopefully that makes sense. Okay. If the types of loads you have present a hazard, then you may need a vertical backrest extension. Now, I haven't been out there shopping for fork trucks. To me, if I was buying a fork truck, I would have a backrest extension like that on it to begin with. But anyway, that's just what the slide says. Typically I would get one with that as well anyway. Fuel handling and storage. Liquid fuels, you're going to be looking at, you're going to be complying with NFPA requirements, like I said, number 30, 1969. And if you had LP gas, you'll be in compliance with NFPA 1969 as well. So you're going to use safe fuel handling storage practices and procedures. Now, let me go ahead and stop for a minute. Is everybody good to go? Are we okay? Do we have questions or comments? Questions, comments, or are you good to go? Okay, Joyce, everybody's okay. All right, and I'm going to try to, okay, got a question. What were those NFPA standards again? Okay, we'll go back to those slides. Okay, as far as the OSHA standard is concerned, NFPA 30, 1969, and that's for liquid fuels, and NFPA 58, 1969, that's for LP gas. Okay. All right, looks like everybody's good right now. Okay, so say you've got an electric fork truck. You're going to put the charging station in a logical area. You're going to put it in an area that's safe as far as its particular safe venting. And you're going to protect that charger from damage from fork trucks, for example. So you'll have stanchions, bollards, you'll have equipment out there to keep people. So you'll have stanchions, bollards, you'll have equipment out there to keep people from running in to the charging station. Now I see, Joyce, you put 1910 178 F2. You put that down. I've got my standards book just like y'all do. 1978 F2. F2. Yeah, okay. And like I said, that's the standard reference for what we just talked about. All right, let's keep going. Um, if you're servicing batteries, if if you're servicing batteries, you need to have equipment there, safety equipment there to protect the employee. And what would that be? If you service batteries, what are you going to have in that area near the charging station? Okay, eye wash, safety shower slash eye wash. Okay, eye wash and shower. Now make sure through the engineering of that charging station and all that you have the eye wash close by, but not an eye wash in the area we're going to pose another hazard of electrical and water getting together. So you want it close by as well. Now Hugo's got a good uh, Hugo, you're ahead of the game. You do want ventilation there as well, adequate ventilation. Okay, and PPE as well. Wow, Will, that's a good comment for this picture. Now I wasn't around this picture, and it's small on my screen. I'd have to really blow it up. It does look like it's in front of a panel. If that's the case, it needs to be. Like I said, I don't know the scenario on this. You do need 36 inches, minimum 36 inches from that panel, and that picture was made by compliance, and that is most likely why that picture was made is that they made that, and I can't see the bigger picture here, but that does appear to be a panel, like you said, behind there. So if that's the case, you're not going to have anything blocking access to that panel. That's a really good catch. Okay, now like Hugo said a couple of minutes ago, you want adequate ventilation so that you don't have a buildup of gas. What kind of gas are we talking about here? Hydrogen gas. That's right, Ray and Joseph. So anytime you're charging batteries, what's in those batteries? Where does the hydrogen come from? Where does the hydrogen what's in those batteries? Sulfuric acid. That's right, Joseph. H2SO4. So like say sulfuric acid is H2SO4. Like I said, sulfuric acid, your H2, that's your hydrogen. Uh, that's where the hydrogen's coming from. So tell people to always be careful around batteries, and this is also a safety tip for everybody that doesn't deal with forklifts. But if you've ever jump started a car, jump started, one car to another or a truck to a car, uh, batteries, there have been cases where batteries have exploded because your car or truck battery, I mean, it dissipates hydrogen gas as well. Yeah, worst case like the Hindenburg, think the Hindenburg. But there have been cases where you had an exploding battery. So something again to think about when you, to me, if you have somebody servicing batteries, we're talking goggles for eye protection because of what you're dealing with as well. All right. Now you want facilities to lift and move these heavy batteries and make sure they're secured. And like Joseph said, no smoking. That's in the standard. Um, you want adequate equipment and safe procedures, pouring acid into water, not water into acid. Setting the brake when you're taking batteries out or charging them. Check the vent caps. Open the battery cover to dissipate heat. Engage the parking brake. Okay, Tammy's got a question. Should you have area for the battery that should you have area for the battery be water after the charged? I don't understand the question. Okay, okay, Tammy. I need in case the water is low after the charging. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's you should have a safe area to service the battery if you have to add water. Okay. All right. Yeah. You should you should have an area where you actually service the batteries, whether you're adding water or adding anything, working on the batteries, whatever. You should have an area set up to actually service the batteries if that's what you do. Okay. Now, this has already been mentioned. No smoking in the charging area because of the potential hydrogen. Keep sparks away and metallic objects and tools away from the tops of batteries. Because if you had a metal wrench and you turned it the wrong way, you could make contact from the positive to the negative and receive a dangerous charge. Lighting. Now, in the OSHA standard, it says you must have lighting on the truck if you send that truck into an area where they have less than 2 lumens per square foot lighting. Now, I would say a lot of, probably most of the fork trucks that are sold now have lights on them. But I don't have the data on that. But where would you put a truck that would be dark? Where would you send a truck? What would a dark place be? Trailers. That's exactly right. So if you didn't have lights on the truck, what would be another solution for the trailers? Okay, dock lights. That's what I'm looking for, dock lights. So again, a lot of companies, they have dock lights on each dock. So a truck pulls in, they chock the wheels or lock to the building, they open up the truck's dark, they have a dock light maybe on either side of the bay, they swing it over and point those lights into the trailer. So if your truck never goes into dark areas, it doesn't need lights. Where you do have dark areas, you have to have provisions so it won't be dark. Otherwise, your truck's going to have lights on it. Okay, now carbon monoxide, you want to think about all the places the fork truck goes. If it's if it's a combustible engine that's burning some kind of fuel besides just electrical, if it's burning fuel, that equipment's creating carbon monoxide. So if you have those types of trucks and they go into trailers, tell your operators to get in and out of those trailers. Don't sit in the trailer idling and talking on your phone or doing anything, talking to somebody. Don't don't hang out in the trailer with the motor running because you're generating carbon monoxide in there. If your operators ever say that they're dizzy or they feel lightheaded from operating one of these trucks, you think, first of all, what type truck is it? Does it burn fuel? If the answer is yes, what areas does it go into? You may need to do some monitoring. Now, if you looked in the OSHA standard, what is the permissible exposure limit per OSHA for carbon monoxide, 8-hour permissible exposure limit? What is that? What is that number? The permissible exposure limit, okay, and I'll get back to your question here in a second, Michael. 50, that's right, Christina. Uh, 50 parts per million carbon monoxide. Okay, now, okay, Michael asks, what warning lights are required? in the OSHA standard itself, um, I don't I don't see anything in there, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if there's any requirement for warning lights. Now you can buy trucks with strobes. You can buy trucks with blue lights. Blue lights right now are very popular because people are getting conditioned to horns. Yes, Cynthia's 8-hour time weighted average for 50. That's right. So there's no requirement in the standard for warning lights, but you can get those, and it depends on the truck. And then there's some optional lights like those blue lights that send a blue beam out. Employees and operators seem to like those blue lights as an option right now. You may or may not know what I'm talking about. If you don't, look it up after the class and find out about those blue lights, Michael. Um, they're very popular because if you're in a warehouse, say a warehouse situation, and you got trucks going back and forth, they're going beep, 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 beep. I mean, I just get conditioned to that to the point where it doesn't seem like a warning anymore. But if I'm walking through a warehouse and I see a blue light coming out of the racks, I know a forklift is coming. And like Ray says, it's a great visual aid. So we don't endorse anything officially, but it's still a best practice to have those blue lights. You might want to look into it. Okay, now typically a lot of operations they have docks and they're running fork trucks into trailers. So if there's no other safety equipment there, you're for that trailer, you're going to have to chock those wheels. Now, what can you use in lieu of chocking those wheels? What can you use also? Dock lock. That's right, Mitzi and Christina and everybody else is typing. Joseph, Michael, Mitzi. A dock lock, or I think that's also a brand, or whoever makes those, whatever brands they are, it is a way to lock that trailer onto the building so the truck driver is they're backing that truck, and here beside the dock, it'd be kind of hard to draw for me, but it won't be blue. You'll have a, you'll have a red, you'll have a red light, and you'll have a red light and a green light. Those are blue, so it wouldn't be blue, but it looked like kind of like a stoplight. So a truck driver's backing the truck in, and there's a bar, there's an ICC bar below the trailer, and it goes into a receiver, and it locks that truck into the building. So the light's green, he backs it in, it locks it into the building, and then you got a red light outside. The driver looks in his mirror, he sees red light. That means that trailer's locked to the building, it's not going to roll away. Now on the other side of the wall, a forklift operator, once they get their dock plate down or their leveler, they're going to see a green light on the other side saying it's safe to go into this truck because it's locked to the building. Uh, Now, once that truck is ready to pull away, the dock lock is disengaged. The light on the outside of the building goes to green. It shows the driver it's safe to pull it away, and then it's red on the other side saying, don't enter this truck. It's not locked in. Now, okay, Cynthia was asking about which rear wheels. Now, since that is plural wheels, you're talking about whatever. No matter what you do, there's sets of wheels going across. Uh, if I'm chalking here, if I'm chalking here, if I'm chalking here in front of this wheel, on the set of that set of wheels going across on the other side, that same wheel on the other side, I'm chalking that. I'm not chalking this front wheel and that back wheel on opposite sides. I'm going to do it off the same axle. So as long as you chalk wheels instead of wheel, that chalks both sides, whether it's the front wheels or the rear wheels, as long as the chalk is in front of the wheel and is put there properly. Okay, Michael says, okay, ICC and the dock lock are missing, damaged. What do you do? Always chalk as a default. That's correct. Yes. Yes. So Cynthia, you're right. Okay, so either rear axle. That's right. So if your dock locks aren't working properly or damaged or whatever, you're going to chalk. Now, what I want you to do, for those of you, okay, let me ask this before I have you do anything else. Are dock locks, can you find those in the OSHA standard? Can you find dock locks in the OSHA standard if you're looking right now? No. So we'll say in North Carolina, how do you know, how do you know that that's even allowed? Now, this is the OSHA standards. These are the national federal OSHA standards, which were all adopted by the state of North Carolina. We're a state plan state. And you're using dock locks. In North Carolina, is there any document you can look at to show whether they're allowed? And if they are allowed, what are the requirements for those? Well, they're not in the standard. If you go to labor.nc.gov, if you go to our website, you're going to find a standards notice. And if you scroll to the very top of the front of the chat, you'll see standards notice 66, use of dock locks in lieu of chalking. So if you have dock locks, I would suggest that you click on that link and print that document out and make sure you're doing everything required for those dock locks as far as inspection and maintenance. They are allowed in North Carolina, and this is the standards notice that a compliance officer in North Carolina is going to be using if you have dock locks. So again, I would suggest that you pull that standards notice 66 up and read it and print it out if you have dock locks in your facility. Okay, so that's what I got to say about dock locks. Like Christina put down, NC SN 66. So if you go to our website and you go into the search bar, okay, Michael, if you go to labor.nc.gov and you go to our website, once you get in there, if you type in SN 66, it'll take you right to that standards notice. And let's see, I've got it. Now you're also able to go, do you guys see a little folder? Do you see a little folder down there in the bottom right of your screen, folder? Let me know if you see a folder. Do you see a folder? And okay, can you open that folder up? Okay, can you see documents in there? Yep. Okay. Can you open Standards Notice 66? See if let me know if you can open it up. Can anybody open that document up? Okay, good. Well, there it is. So I don't need to send it to you. You can pull it up out of that little document folder. And I also sent you a link in the chat. So again, all right, good. So anyway, I'm not going to send that out to all the students because right now you've got it in your folder and you know how to find it. It's pretty easy. All right, let's keep going. Now, everybody good? Are we good to go? Any questions, comments? How are we doing? Okay, good. Good, good, good. Okay, some of you load and unload railroad cars. It's right straight out of the standard. You're gonna put the brake on for the railroad car. The companies that have railroad cars, they know how to do that, and they're going to create a safe situation to unload that railroad car. Okay, Blake says it kicked me out when I tried opening. Now, was anybody able to open that document in the folder without it kicking you out? I'll go ahead and ask the question. Okay. So sorry, some of you may have technical difficulties. Yeah, that's the current one we're using, Joyce. Okay. All right. Now, let's keep going. Now, here's another place where people can get confused. The standard says fixed jacks may be necessary to support the trailer while you load it and unload it, and it's not coupled to a tractor or the truck that's in the front of the trailer. I want people to know what the fixed jacks are. Now this picture's dark, but there's a fixed jack there, and there's one there. There's a bar that goes across. What's another name for this fixed jack? What's that also called? Street, what's the street term for that? Or something they call it, people call it something else. You see, okay. How about landing gear? Yeah, landing gear, that's right, Rocket. Landing gear. So when the standard talks about fixed jacks, it's talking about the landing gear. Now, is there something else that a lot of you use, this is a best practice, that goes beyond using the landing gear? Okay, jack stands. Okay, Christopher. Let me try to draw something here. It's in blue. Now I've got, you see I'm drawing something blue. It's in blue. Now I've got, you see I'm drawing something blue here that's under the nose of the trailer. And that could be called, that can be called a nose jack or a jack stand, whatever your company calls them. A lot of companies require that their trailers also, in addition to the landing gear, have a nose jack or a jack stand under the front. Some companies require one. Some companies require two. Now this shows three, but some companies have two of them. And that gives you an additional level of safety there, but that's not mentioned in the standard. But just want to make sure you understand the difference between a fixed jack landing gear and a nose jack. Okay. Now, when you're training your operators, they have to be deemed to be competent to operate that truck safely. So all of you who are either trained people or have been trained, it's like getting your driver's license. You may have a classroom session. You may see PowerPoint slides. You may have a tour of the plant to see all the different places fork trucks go. But there are a lot of knowledge things that the standards say you need to cover. And then there's also a driver's test or evaluation. So both of those together would be considered training, knowledge and skill. Now the trainer is going to supervise trainees that can operate the truck under supervision until they become competent to where they are trained and released to operate a truck. Now, this training is going to be a combination of a lot of different things. You're going to have lecture, or you're going to talk, you're going to have discussions about hazards. You may have interactive computer learning or not. You may use videos or not. But there are a variety of different ways to teach people so that they can get the knowledge they need about safe operation of powered industrial trucks. Now, that training that you take them through needs to be site and equipment specific. So do not use, let's just say this presentation alone would not be enough for knowledge, because this is not talking about your equipment, your conditions. It's not talking about your company at all. This is generic. So if you take something like this presentation and use it for your training, you need to add additional pictures and information so that they can get the knowledge that they need. You have training exercises and evaluation. Now you have a forklift. We'll call them a forklift trainer for your company. Are they required to go off site to some train the trainer course? Train the trainer. Is that an OSHA requirement? No, it is not. Now that it's a good idea, and it may even be a best practice, but it's not a requirement. As long as that trainer is qualified and had the education and experience regarding the workplace and your equipment, and there's somebody that would model correct safe behavior with forklift operation, you could designate a person inside to be your trainer. So they don't have to have a train the trainer certificate, even though there are a lot of great programs out there like National Safety Council and those folks. They have great programs, but the trainer does not have to go through that as long as they're qualified to do it. Now, you're going to train people on issues related to the equipment you have, the workplace, and the requirements of the standard. And in your training, you need to have all these different elements in your training. When I was 16 years old, I tell this story a lot. When I was 16 years old, I got a factory job, and OSHA didn't even exist yet. There was no OSHA. So I was hired as a materials handler, and I was allowed to operate a powered industrial truck without even training. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. But I never will forget, the person that hired me said it drives just like a car, and they do not drive just like a car. Steering and handling and all that's different than a car. Okay, Joyce says, no, but I've got 4 employees going to be trainers for Public Works. Okay. Like I said, you can qualify them to be trainers and send them to a separate course, but just make sure that they have all the elements required by OSHA to be a trainer. Okay. And like I said, you see the list of things that you need to cover. And that list goes on and on. If I was at your facility and I'm a trainer, I'm a safety trainer for the state Department of Labor. If I was visiting your company and I was talking to one of your forklift operators, just as a trainer, I might go to them and ask them what the load capacity of this truck is. That would be an easy question. Now, when I ask them that question, where are they going to find that information? The load capacity. Yeah, the data plate. That's right. And then I would ask them another question. I'd say, what is the load center for this truck? What is the load center? Again, They're going to take me to the data plate, and they're going to say, for example, they're going to say this truck has a 24-inch load center. Okay. So in other words, this truck is designed to pretty much move pallets of material around because a pallet's 48 inches and the load center is 24. And they go, yeah, okay. So, but we're going to talk about a little bit about stability later. But I would be asking some questions that a qualified operator should be able to answer. Now, when you train people, you're going to talk about the environment they're working under. You're going to talk to them about pedestrians. Some of you have pedestrian aisles. And like Barry says, they should know all this stuff prior to operating. Okay, there, like Will says, are great videos on YouTube about stability. Yep. And Federal Osha and WorkSafe BC in Canada, there are a lot of great videos out there. Now, some of you have warehouses with pedestrian aisles. You train your employees to only walk in these pedestrian aisles. Don't go into any material handling areas because it's dangerous. So how do you handle pedestrians? A lot of places have pedestrian doors. Pedestrians only go through like what they call man doors. It's a man or woman door, but they're called man doors, and equipment doors. They're big doors that only equipment goes through, like fork trucks, and then doors where people walk through. And you tell your employees, don't walk through those, don't walk in and out of dock doors or any doors where equipment's running in and out of. Only go in and out of what we call man doors. You're going to talk about hazardous locations, ramps, when they go up. If they've got a heavy load loaded on a fork truck and they're going up a ramp, where should the load be? If you're taking a truck up a ramp with a load on it, on the high side, that's right, Joseph. So you're going to tell them the load's always going to be high when you go up or down a ramp. Otherwise, that load's going to slide off the forks. Operating in closed environments, all these different things you need to cover. Now, so how often do you need to retrain your employees? Okay, and Barry, that's correct. So actually it's up to 3 years. Now, some of you, right, Ray, that's the perfect answer. All these answers are good. Now, the person that said annually, you can be stricter and you can train people more often, but the OSHA standard says you're going to train people at least every 3 years, unless they're seen operating unsafely, involved in accident or near miss. Again, during their evaluation, they're not operating the truck safely. Assigned to a different type of truck or conditions change. Oh, okay. So we got a question from Barry. It says OSHA requires an evaluation of operator performance every 3 years. What exactly would be an evaluation? Past performance or another demonstration? It would be a separate demonstration. I mean, let's say you got a forklift trainer, and let's say that forklift trainer works in the warehouse, and let's say all your forklifts are out there. That's where they all run. And the trainer has noted that John Smith, for example, operated that fork truck safely every time he saw him all year long. Well, that would not be enough. There are different things that you evaluate somebody on. I'm talking about the skill test, the driving and skill test, that you're gonna take them through a separate evaluation. Now, you're going to at least have to do the evaluation. And a lot of companies will go further than that. They'll do the knowledge and the skill. They'll do everything all over again, every bit of it, every time. And to me, that's the best practice. But you're going to, at a minimum, do a operator evaluation, which is kind of like the driver test, to requalify your operators to continue operating that truck. Okay, now let's see. Okay, Joshua, for the reevaluation, you don't have to do the classroom in here. No, you do not. Now, to keep it simple, a lot of companies like to keep it simple. So they're not we're going to do forklift training class. Let's see, for this person, I need to cover the knowledge and the skill. That person pretty much has the knowledge. I just need to do the skill evaluation. Some companies will just keep it simple and just do everything all over again. And if you do everything all over again, that helps your veteran drivers give examples to be part of the training to help sell safety on with forklifts to the new operators. But again, we're talking about evaluation. Cynthia says we do retraining every 3 years and after every incident or near miss. Perfect. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That's great. All right. So that's the evaluation. Now, let me ask this question. Do you have to issue per OSHA a license to that operator, a license they carry around like a driver's license? You have to give them a license. Do you have to give them a license that they carry around? Okay, let's see. Looks like some people. No. The answer is certification. Okay, you are required to certify their training up to every 3 years. Now, what that means, and I'm going to get to the slide here in a second, that means that your training is certified, that you don't have to give them a card. You can. You don't have to give them a license. You can do that too. But your certified training is like a document. That's required. Now, when I worked in the industry, we had certified training, meaning legally signed, certified training records. But our drivers also had licenses that they carried. They slid it behind their badge, because we had several different types of fork trucks, and not everybody was authorized to drive each type. So on their license, it showed that they were authorized to drive a sit-down fork truck, but not a stand-up or a powered pallet jack. So a license is a great practice. It's a good best practice. I think if I saw licenses, I would think that's fantastic. But again, the license itself is not a requirement. Okay, if somebody's previously been trained, you don't have to give duplicative training. It's hard to say. Okay, now let's don't get this confused with a certificate. The employer must certify that each operator has been trained and evaluated. Certifying these standards means a legal document, and it involves signatures or electronic signatures. And that training document is going to say who the operators were, the dates, the evaluation dates, and identity of trainers. But it's signatures that certify these documents, not what's typed on there. It's signatures that certify, again, the document. Okay, now, we've had a lot of comment on that. Don't drive a truck up to anybody against a bench or fixed object. Hopefully that's common sense. And tell people don't ever get under a load and don't park a truck with a load elevated. Now, some of you have already seen this picture before in other classes. Some of you haven't. What do you see wrong in that little tiny picture there, which is small on your screen? Does anything look wrong there? Yeah, the back wheels are off the ground. Yeah, you got two guys in there, and there's not a seat belt. We got two people in that truck, back wheels up. When the back wheels lift off the ground, that immediately shows that, right, that's correct, Tammy. When those wheels are off the ground, that means that truck is what? Too heavy on the front or overloaded. So here's a picture. It's like a worst case scenario. Two people on the truck, back wheels off the ground, and they're using the forks to lift another fork truck. So this is really this is like a safety nightmare here. So good picture for training though. And your drivers aren't going to carry riders. If you see somebody carrying a rider, that's typically a disciplinary issue, and that gets into your safety disciplinary policies, that sort of thing. And like Joe says, pedestrians standing in the fall zone. Right. And Joe, it's good to hear from you. Joe Owen is a very experienced, I even call Joe an expert. He's been training people operate forklifts for years. So good comment coming from Joe. Now, you're going to keep all the arms and legs inside the truck, when you're operating it. And I told some folks in class last week, we had a 30-hour class, that in Charlotte several years ago, there was a fork truck that was running in a warehouse. The warehouse had wood floors, and the fork truck fell through the floor to the next level. Luckily, the driver survived. He kept within the safety zone, had a seatbelt on. The forklift landed on its side, and I'm sure there were some minor injuries to the driver, but the driver was not killed. Okay, keep moving. So these slides just say when a driver's leaving their fork truck, if they're greater than 25 feet away, they're going to turn the power off, drop the load, neutralize the controls, and chock the wheels if they're on the incline. Okay, now Michael says, are you required to have a shield between? No, you're not required to have a shield between the compartment and mast. Now, if I was somebody that sold fork trucks, I don't know if I haven't seen anywhere they've designed a shield in there. No, that is not a requirement. But ANSI determines the safe design of fork trucks. So just make sure that you don't alter or modify that truck in any way. If you start adding things to it, you need to get with the manufacturer. Okay, now if your driver is close to the truck, all those other things still apply. It's just it can still be running. Keep safe distances from the edge. Don't use forklifts to open and close doors. Okay, stand-up forks have them. Okay. Like I said, if it's within the design of the truck, that's fine. But there are many, many fork trucks where you can stick your arm outside the operator area into the mast area where the chain and everything is. Okay. All right. We've already talked about chocking wheels and fixed jacks. Go ahead and skip that slide. Make sure you have sufficient clearance around your facility. Sprinklers, lights, all that. Now, your overhead guard, let's just talk about the overhead guard itself. By design, is it designed to keep every single thing from falling through it? Are they typically designed? No. Those are pretty much designed to save your life. But I mean, you might have little tiny things fall through. Okay. We've already talked about backrest. Keep areas clear where you're running your trucks. Right. FOPS is not necessarily a ROPS. That's right. So anything that's above to protect the driver doesn't mean it's rollover protection. That's a different kind of engineering there. When you travel with fork trucks, it's like driving that is like, kind of like driving a car. This part, safe speed, safe distances, right away, look for intersections, blind spots. Now, now the view for the driver, there are some blind spots for the driver because of the truck, and make sure your employees know that they may not be seen. Let's see. Okay, Joe says the overhead guard may not stop a capacity load. That's true. Yeah, good comment. And Will says I've seen people lift loads on pallets to a height of 3 to 4 feet, wrap pallets and items with plastic. No operator on truck with lifted load. Thoughts? Okay. Okay. So in other words, they're adding now they're adding shrink wrap to the pallet. Now, when I was in the industry, what we would do, we didn't wrap pallets while it was on the fork truck. So we don't want people working near an elevated load, even if they're just standing around it, because if the load falls, there's a hazard there. So that would be my thoughts on that. Don't shrink wrap a pallet while it's on the truck. Do it before you pick it up. Okay. While it's on the truck, do it before you pick it up. Okay. There we go. That's right. And we, in a lot of places, have these pieces of equipment to wrap your pallets. And there's also equipment to switch loads from wood pallets to plastic pallets. A lot of good equipment out there. You're welcome. So let's keep going. We got about 12 minutes left. We're going to slow down, sound the horns. Um, if load obstructs forward view, then travel with load trailing. That totally makes sense. Are there ever cases where you have to go forward with the load in front of you? There's no other way. Are there ever situations where you have to? Okay, the answer is yes. So in those cases, okay, there's the trailer. And let's just say we're not in a trailer. Use a spotter. That's right, Will. That's what I'm going for, is use a spotter. Because there are going to be times where the driver's going to need a spotter. Cross railroad tracks diagonally. Keep a clear view of travel. Like Joe says, up a ramp maybe. Yeah, you might need a spotter. And here's our ramp here. And don't turn the forklift on a grade. Make sure dock boards and plates are secure. And again, look at the potential hazards of falling off the dock, moving trucks or railroad cars during loading, inadequate dock boards. Elevators. If you ever load an elevator, first make sure the elevator can handle the load like a freight elevator, and put that load in first. You don't back in with the load in front. You put the load in first, and you see neutralized control, power shut off, brake set. Okay. And powered pallet jacks, it's the same rule. Traveling loose objects can become missiles. If you run over an object and pinch it, it can send that object flying. Be safe when you're going around turns. Okay. You want stable loading. And sometimes you can get some really interesting loads, like is in this compliance picture. I'm sure compliance officer was really paying attention to this. I mean, you have a really, really super wide load. They have to figure out how to safely move this wide load here. Here's that picture again. This truck is overloaded. The rear wheels are up. And this is a close-up. They're lifting another truck with that truck. Those forks are not designed for that. And it even gets worse. They're using some cribbing. They're using some wood for cribbing there that's not adequate. So again, this is kind of like a safety nightmare right here. Okay. Now, when you lift your load, you're going to tilt it back and raise it just high enough to be able to move around. You don't want to raise it too high because that affects stability. Now, the issues with this picture are a little bit on the tilt end, but also with the load center. Now this is a mock-up picture, but let's just say this is a truck that's designed for pallets, 48-inch pallets. So those forks are going to handle 48 inches. Let's say this box here, let's say it's 96 inches long. The load center on the fork is 24 inches, half the pallet. The load center on the box is half that box. So if you got 24-inch load center for the truck and you got 48 load center on the box, the difference is 24 inches. So the point you want to make with your trainee is that you're going to lose capacity on this truck because of that long load. For every 1 inch you go beyond 24 on your load center, which is 24 inches here, you're reducing the capacity of that truck about 2,400 pounds by this long load. So, like I said, you need to talk to your operators about long loads because even though the load is within the capacity, the fact that it's long, the truck may not be able to handle it. Okay, a little bit about load center. Okay, you be careful when loading, unloading, tilting. Tilt forward with load engaging means. Elevated. I mean, you don't want to tilt anything forward unless you're trying to pick up a load. Then you're going to tilt it back, essentially. Now, when shall a truck be inspected? When are you going to require to inspect that truck? When is that required? Daily before use. That's right. Before each use, and at least before each shift daily. Now, if you don't use the trucks on the weekend, they don't have to be inspected. But before each shift and daily at a minimum. Now, and I'm going to speed up a little bit because I only have 6 minutes. If your truck does not pass inspection, tag it out of service. Take it out of service. And be safe with fuels. That's all these other bullets. A good question for a company would be, I see you've been in operation 10 years and you have 6 fork trucks and they've been inspected at least daily, at least once daily. Have they ever failed inspection? And somebody been operating trucks for 10 years and they never failed a pre-use inspection. To me, that might make me think they're pencil whipping their inspections. You would think that in all that time they would have found something wrong. And like Barry said, you need documentation to prove that you actually did it. When it doesn't pass, you're going to move to service, repair, use authorized people to make repairs. Now this picture right here is a picture made by a compliance officer, and to save time, it's got a poor seat on there, no seat belt, and these these controls here have no knobs on there. So you got an impalement hazard there, an impalement hazard there, no seat belt. And then after it was repaired, it's still kind of a rough looking piece of equipment. That's what it needed to be done to bring it to minimum requirements. And if a truck doesn't have a seat belt, if it can be retrofitted with one, then it shall have one. Okay. Minor quarter-size drops hydraulic leak. Should it be taken out of service? Um, that's a good question. I know Joe's on the webinar here. I'll let Joe chime in. You shouldn't have, I would say you shouldn't have any leaks, because even if you have a small leak, we'll go ahead and say no, we shouldn't have any, because a small leak can become bigger. We don't want any leaks. That's like your car. If your car is leaking oil, you need to look into it, because you may lose all your hydraulic fluid, just like your car could lose oil, and you could create a slippery surface. Okay, prior to repairs, you may disconnect the electrical. You don't want to fix things in any way different than the manufacturer. Okay, yeah. Upon further thought, you can't approve anything that has any leaks like that. We've already talked about inspection of trucks. Here's a truck with a section of tread out of the tire. Um, Everything inspected to make sure that it's in good condition. Now here's a compliance picture. Here's a truck that was in poor shape that should have been taken out of service, but you can't. It's very dirty there. Well, they're working with concrete, but the truck should have been taken out of service. Now with stability, when you train people, you can have long tip overs or side to side, and you get into stability in your training. So you tell an operator the center of gravity when when nobody's on it, it's going to be right there at the seat. As you load it, the center of gravity is going to move toward the pivot point or the fulcrum. If you overload it, center of gravity goes here and the rear wheels go up. Stability, you want to talk about stability and keeping that little dot within the stability triangle. That would be part of your training. And the OSHA standard also talks about how stability is affected by lifting loads high as well. Okay, now, James, do you need additional safety warning signal device if you operate on a short portion between plants of a state-maintained road? And you're just driving that truck on the actual road. I tell you what, James, what I'm going to do with that question, and it may not be today, I've got a really busy day today, I'm going to follow up on that question. Obviously, we get into DOT requirements when we're driving on roads. Let me look into that one. We're not talking about just pavement. We're talking about a road, like a street or highway. And it makes me think about tractors on the highway with those triangles on the back, that sort of thing. Let me look in that further. And Michael, you can get the presentation on our website. The link is at the first of our chat. If you scroll all the way to the beginning of the chat, click on the link. Okay? Go ahead and do that now before I log off. If you get knocked off, go to labor.nc.gov, go to our presentations, and you can download Powered Industrial Trucks. So, wow, we've covered a lot today, and I'll go through the chat and make sure we don't have any other questions, and I'll follow up with that one question about the road. So right now at 11:29, that is the end of the webinar, so you can log off if you'd like. And I'll stay on here for just about one more minute. Okay, you're welcome. And I just saw something about golf cart. Oops. Okay, maintenance gators and golf carts fall under PIT standards. Answer is no. So on those pieces of equipment, just follow the manufacturer's instructions on those. Okay. Now OSHA will force you to be under the manufacturer's instructions when you use these other types of equipment like golf carts. Okay. All right. So again, thank you for being on our webinar today. It's been great, and I'll follow up on that one question and also make sure I hadn't missed any others. Like I said, it doesn't cover gators and golf carts. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. It looks like I don't have any questions. I've got actually 11:31 right now. I'm going to go ahead and log off. Anyway, it's been great having you guys online today, and we'll see you in the next webinar. All right. All of you have a great day. Goodbye.